Friendly reminder guys, when you grow up never learning how to say no, some twinkle toe tribe mates will end up abusing it. And in this specific case the abuser was a Danish PvP enthusiast who figured out that there was a tribe currently doing a boss fight. Me being not too far away carrying a already very hurt Barney the dinosaur decided it wouldn't hurt to give this Ellen DeGeneres looking failed Viking a hand. So off I went pressing my autistic munch button down repeatedly for a ridiculously long time, so long in fact that Ellen DeGeneres here started thinking they might have failed the boss fight. But little did we know they had Kenny the Predator stalking us from behind. So with an almost unwavering manly voice, I remind Denmark that he needs to have his grapple equipped. Sadly the message must have been lost in translation because Kenny the Predator decided to test him right then and there on the spot. Needless to say Ellen DeGeneres let me down. So now I've been put in a situation which I would have loved to avoid, but at least it's just a 1 versus 1 fight, right? Wrong. Allow me to remind you that Kenny happens to be a redneck name and them rednecks are famous for quite a few things, one involving the phrase squeal piggy squeal. My mood for reenacting that scenario could not have been any lower. One by one the Prozac-deprived trio show me their driving skills while being under the influence. I was obviously incredibly impressed. So like a bunch of redneck perverts hanging around a school playground they spend a decent amount of time attempting to figure out how to approach me and my handy-dandy Barney the dinosaurs. They do a few random drive-bys with their inbred-looking Charizards, one by one spitting their green-looking chewing tobacco at my face. But joke's on them, I was already aware that I would be hanging out with a Danish guy, so I brought my hazmat suit in case he felt like talking with his mouth open around me. When the redneck trio discover that their Bill Cosby tactics is not working they move on to the next stage of their plan, that being kidnapping something that they believe to be precious to me. Little do they know I've trained that stego specifically to urinate on kidnappers. Daryl the fiddling fiddle player sees an opportunity to do a random drive-by on one of my Barneys. Turns out Barney was having none of it. We pulled out our Second Amendment and treated him to some freedom. Just like a dog that knows it's doing a great job, the Barneys get overly excited and start to chase Daryl's parachuting body. Quickly I realize murdering a man who's using a parachute is in fact a war crime, so we turn around. Kenny the rapist however has no such gentlemanly standards and goes for a sneak attack. Unlike Ellen DeGeneres however I carry grapples. Kenny clearly has a black belt in kidnapping. Realizing I'm not grappling any surfaces I quickly change my strategy, so I whisper sweet nothings into his ears making him succumb to my charm. It worked and so far Kenny and Daryl are down, meaning only Willie the alcoholic remains. Luckily for me Willie happens to be a little bit too intoxicated, so he mistakes me for Spider-Man and hoists him off instead, leaving me with a brief opportunity to sprint back to my Barney the dinosaurs who have had enough time to join the Olympics and master synchronized swimming. Suffering from PTSD I take a few looks back making sure Willie hasn't decided to snort some angel dust. Turns out the answer is no. For a few pleasant seconds I get some much needed breathing room. However, being fueled up on cocaine and Danish treats I promptly opt to cancel the break and re-engage the battle. Poor old Willie, who was just about to get some well-deserved rest, finds himself forced to retaliate. Like an angry Jehovah's Witness at a door factory, Willie starts spitting in all directions. I was not only intimidated but dare I say aroused. During this moment I also noticed my Barney was about to get a flat tire, so like any parent that cares for his child I abandoned him and got myself an upgrade. It feels good to know that by losing Ellen DeGeneres I got myself a spare Barney. That being said, I was brought here in the first place for a reason, and out of the blue that reason appears. It's the entire redneck family sporting white pillowcase looking masks and rhinos who I assume will be murdered for their horns once they get home. Instead of letting these savages have their way with the poor creatures I opt to euthanize the entire group there and then. The rednecks however have been studying the art of incest and decide to split up in all directions. I set my eyes on the weakest link and sprint towards him. They quickly show their true colors and thoughts about animal welfare when this one redneck turns out to be Michael Phelps. The man straight up abandoned his rhino like if it was a used sock. Meanwhile, dealing with being over-encumbered, I start getting pelted with love letters in the form of bullets. I catch the culprit far on the other side of the corner waving his "Don't Tread on Me" flag. In an attempt to have a civilized conversation I try to close the gap between me and him. Turns out he is not having any of it. Instead I take my lovely debate over to one of the abandoned rage-fueled rhinos. Thinking this will be a civilized conversation, it was not, because in comes Humpty Dumpty the frozen kitty cat. Like someone following the guidelines on how to be a vegan, the frozen testicle starts jumping around, interfering in my civilized conversation. Mostly due to the fact he felt it was necessary for me to know he's a vegan. It takes me a moment, but I start to think, why did these rednecks have a kitty cat at hand and only start to use it now? Guess what? Turns out this kitty cat was part of Ellen DeGeneres' kit, which brings me to my next point. If you truly enjoy suffering and being degraded, just get married and fold the towels, wrong man. Don't make your frozen testicle cat my problem. Anyway, frozen testicle cat is my problem now, and I don't have the tools to deal with the slippery little fricadifrack. So instead I opt to wait for my backup because he doesn't seem to be aggressive enough to come within range of Barney's little mouth. So what can we talk about while we wait? Well, allow me to list up from my newly published book called How to Disappoint the People in Your Life in a Few Easy Steps. Firstly, this one is for you who might be married or has a girlfriend at home. The next time your partner gets angry, drape a towel over her shoulders like a cape and say, "Now you are super angry." Maybe she'll laugh, maybe you'll die. Either way, happiness favors the bold if you ask me. Secondly, whenever you meet someone and they tell you all men are the same, make sure to remind them that they never had to try all of them. And thirdly, this one is more just general advice, the worst time to have a heart attack is during a game of charades. So plan your sicknesses accordingly. Lastly, let's add one motivational speech as well, for good measure or something. If you think your day is bad, just know someone out there is sitting down and watching a 20 to 30 minute video on how to be an alpha male, and that better make you feel great. Alright, enough distracting conversation. The redneck family seems to for the most part have been grounded to shooting love letters from their confetti guns, and outside of that all I see is the kitty cat. My backup, which should be arriving momentarily, consists of Jello, who you might have seen in one of the previous episodes back when we did the Crossark 11 series. There's also Joey, who happens to be a very healthy and stable individual with a smile that spreads like rose petals in the wind, and then there's Ellen DeGeneres, who shall hereby be known as Mr. Flaccid Penis, aka Wettest Mouth Award winner. Oh my stars, they finally arrived. In the name of everything holy, thank you Phil frickin' Collins. The boys arrive and the rednecks are forced to put their aim on multiple targets, knowing full well that these gentlemen have never once successfully handled multitasking. It becomes very evident that they're mostly just scattering out to make passionate grunting sounds in the bushes. Honestly, whatever makes them happy is great if you ask me. Well, for a few seconds here I'm going to let time just speed up, because you might not have noticed this, but I've just made you sit there and watch nothing happen for the last 2 or 3 minutes. Meaning either I'm going to get a whole lot of lovely messages from you people, or you are going to try to stab me in the street, and I'm not risking that. The rednecks start yelling at us in anger, accusing us of aimbotting, but let's be honest, for the last few minutes you guys have all seen the skill level of the PvP involved in this fight. If anyone would even hit a target today, that person would most likely be considered a top marksman. Either way, Joey is having a great time showing all the gentlemen what a lobotomy operation looks like. Meanwhile, Jello suffers, as is tradition, mentoring Ellen DeGeneres how to utilize the stego, and guiding him so that we can soak the heavy turret that they've been hiding behind during the duration of this entire frickin' video. Slowly Ellen DeGeneres crawls his important ass forward as I try to cover him so that Willy, the last remaining Charizard, doesn't show up out of the blue. The man has a track record of stealing shit at this point, and I'm not having it anymore. Jello, however, being the red Charizard that you just noticed, had a slight malfunction and managed to successfully soak some of the bullets out with his body. Some people would say he's a hero and should be treated accordingly. Some people would say that, not me however, because now I am stuck alone with Ellen. So the unavoidable obviously happens, and you know what, at least I got to murder the trio, so all in all I'm gonna call it a good time. In the end we managed to kill them because the turret didn't have many bullets left. The fight was fun, and thanks for stopping by. Consider hitting the button or leaving a comment. Have a wonderful day, lunatics.